Today, after finishing the day's fishing with Joshua, we silently loaded the buckets full of fish onto a cart to take them to the market. It's quite a physical task. After stacking the last bucket, just as I was about to start walking, I heard a child's unfamiliar voice. "Can we help you?" When I turned around, I saw two little girls, about 3 years old, standing side by side with identical faces. What? Next to the twins was a woman who seemed to be their mother. "Could you let us help you a bit? In exchange, I was wondering if we could maybe have some leftover fish." The mother was petite as well. In my 15 years as a fisherman, I had never been asked for something like this. Offering help in exchange for fish. They must have some reason. I wanted to help, but I wasn't sure what task I could give them. While I was thinking this, I heard Joshua's booming laughter from the boat. What happened next was beyond anything I could have expected. "My name is Dave. I work as a fisherman with Joshua, who's a seasoned veteran. I once hated spending more than 10 hours a day on the boat and briefly tried working an office job. But eventually, I realized I wanted to be a fisherman like Joshua, the man I respect most. It's been 15 years now. I'm 38 and still single. I think I've become skilled enough to call myself a full-fledged fisherman. But Joshua is in a league of his own, especially when it comes to understanding the ocean itself, reading the tides, sensing changes in the wind. Sometimes, I wonder if Joshua is some sort of sea sage. Whenever I mention this, Joshua always replies the same way. "Don't be ridiculous. I'm no sage. You're just too inexperienced. I rely on intuition, you know. As a fisherman, you need to trust yours, too. It seems I still have a long way to go." Joshua also has an uncanny ability to read people. Despite dedicating his life to fishing, he has a strange knack for observation and insight. He says he met Nicola, his wife, at the docks, and somehow knew right away that they would get married. I can't relate at all with my lack of experience in romance. Even though I come to the port every day, I can't imagine finding love here. That day, after fishing, I was again silently stacking buckets of fish onto the cart to take them to the market. It's tough, physical work. Just as I finished loading and was about to head out, I heard a child's voice. "Can we help you?" When I turned, there they were, two little girls, about 3 years old, identical in appearance, standing side by side. What? A woman who seemed to be their mother stood next to them. "Could you let us help you a bit? In exchange, I was wondering if we could maybe have some leftover fish." The mother was petite as well. In my 15 years as a fisherman, I had never been asked for something like this. Offering help in exchange for fish. They must have their reasons. I wanted to assist, but I wasn't sure what task I could assign them. As I was mulling over this, Joshua's hearty laugh echoed from the boat. "Well then, how about helping with the cart?" The cart, loaded with multiple buckets of fish, requires strength and skill to maneuver. Joshua stepped closer to the twins, crouching down to meet their eye level, and smiling warmly. "So you girls want to help out? Daphne and Inez are here to cheer for Mom while she helps. Is that so? Helping Mom while cheering her on? Huh, that must make her really happy." Hearing that, he nodded to the mother, and then asked the twins, "Do you girls like fish?" The two answered energetically, "Yeah, I love it. I ate a lot. Yeah, I love it too. I can even leave the bones." Joshua squinted with satisfaction at their answer, and then turned to their mother. "Let's move this cart to that farmer's market. Don't worry, I'll go with you." Turning to me, watching the situation unfold, he spoke in his usual curt tone. "Dave, you prepare the fish for the kids." "Oh, okay." Joshua started walking off without waiting for my reply. Grace stumbled a bit at first, but she seemed to catch on quickly. The little kids were peeking into the buckets on the cart, chatting with Joshua, and bouncing around with excitement. It was clear they were having a great time. Joshua walked alongside the cart, occasionally lending Gray a hand. Meanwhile, he kept talking non-stop. I watched until the cart reached the market stall, then began selecting fish to hand over to the family. I placed smaller, easier to handle fish into the open bucket. Soon, Joshua returned with the family and glanced at the bucket, but it seemed he wasn't satisfied with my selection. "Come on, don't be stingy. Here, add this one too." He added a salmon that was originally meant for a restaurant delivery. When the mother peeked into the bucket, she let out a surprised gasp. "Oh my, this is so much. Thank you so much. Wait, this salmon, is it already processed? Can we really accept this?" I was surprised too. It was impressive that she could recognize the type of fish, let alone that it had been processed. Processing helps preserve the freshness of the fish and enhances its taste and texture. The fish delivered to restaurants are usually processed this way. Seeing her hesitation, Joshua flashed a satisfied smile. "It's fine, it's a little congratulations for passing the interview. If it works for you, you can start as early as tomorrow." "Yes, departure is at 4 a.m., right? Okay, I'll confirm and give you a call. Thank you so much for all the fish. See you. See you." I waved at the cheerful twins and nodded to their mother as I saw them off. Still wondering what had just happened, Joshua explained that the mother's name was Gray. The girls were indeed twins, Daphne and Inez, 3 years old, and attending daycare. Gray was a single mother who had just moved to the area and had come to the port that day after seeing a job ad, only to be turned away and left stranded. Moving costs money, you know. She probably didn't have anyone to rely on in this unfamiliar town, and she must have been out of cash and struggling. So when she said she liked being out on the water, I asked if she'd help with the fishing. Joshua spoke as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Recently, we'd been catching so much fish that we could definitely use the extra hands. But fishing is hard, physical work, and she seems so refined. Honestly, you're terrible at judging people. Gray is determined. Of course, we won't push her beyond her limits. If it doesn't work out, she can stop. Joshua looked completely convinced as he headed home ahead of me, while I delivered the fish to our client. At the restaurant, they complained about being one salmon short, but there wasn't much I could do about it. When I got home, Joshua was at the dinner table, talking to Nicole about Gray and the twins. Nicola seemed thrilled at the mention of the young twin girls. 3 years old, that's such an adorable age. 2 identical little girls. I wish I could have met them. Right then, Gray called. With a 4 a.m. departure, I can't take the kids to daycare, which doesn't open until 7. She had asked around, but there was no one available to babysit that early. Leaving her children behind wasn't an option, so she called to regretfully decline the job offer. Joshua relayed her words to Nicola step by step. Nicola, growing more and more annoyed, finally responded, "I'll take care of them." Joshua asked the caller to hold on for a moment and checked with Nicola. "Every morning at 3:30, you'll need to head to Gray's house. The daycare opens at 7. Nicola's face lit up with excitement, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Of course, I'm looking forward to it. Please share the address." "Oh, I know that apartment. Yes, no problem at all. The daycare is Hilltop Daycare, right? Leave it to me." Even without the speaker mode on, Nicola's voice seemed to carry over to the other end. The conversation wrapped up quickly and smoothly. Nicola seemed very enthusiastic, but I hoped she didn't feel obligated or pressured into agreeing. However, the cheerful tone of the goodbye on the phone reassured me. Well then, I'll be counting on you starting tomorrow. That morning, we left the house while it was still dark at 3:30. Nicola headed to Gray's house while Joshua and I made our way to the fishing boat at the harbor. By 3:50, Gray arrived as well. Good morning. The dim early morning air seemed a bit brighter with Gray's lively greeting. As Joshua prepared for departure, he carefully explained the procedures to Gray, letting her try the simpler tasks herself. Gray diligently took notes, her head bent in concentration. Finally, we set off, steering the boat toward the fishing grounds. Joshua took the wheel that day. Once Gray finished reviewing the notes she had jotted down before departure, I introduced myself. I'm Dave. I've been a fisherman for 15 years, but I'm still learning under Joshua. I gestured toward Joshua, who was steering the boat. 15 years. That makes you a true veteran. Nice to meet you, Dave, the captain's son. I felt a little embarrassed at being called a veteran. To break the silence, I glanced at the notebook in Gray's hands. That notebook can withstand water, right? Gray nodded enthusiastically. Yes, I bought it specifically for harbor work. It's water-resistant. Several pages were already filled. The notes Joshua emphasized as crucial were circled prominently. You're very diligent. I want to do my best to live up to Dave's kindness and be helpful as soon as possible. Gray's earnest gaze left me momentarily speechless. I diverted my eyes to the sea and started talking casually about the weather, while Gray occasionally jotted things down. All right, we're here. Get the ropes ready. Yes, okay. Joshua and I worked with more energy than usual. It was Gray's first day, so just being on the boat and observing was enough, but she followed Joshua's instructions and helped out whenever we got moving. Once the ropes were set, it was time to wait. Gray reviewed her notes, going over the steps from departure to setting the ropes. She seemed familiar with fishing, as she quickly identified the salmon we caught yesterday during processing. When I mentioned this, Gray beamed. I grew up in a fishing village nearby. My grandfather was a fisherman, and salmon was my favorite food. I can recognize it instantly. He laughed, looking at the sea with a nostalgic expression. I often went fishing with my grandfather. Then Gray shared a bit about her current circumstances in a casual yet concise tone. I'm recently divorced and almost broke. The harbor in my hometown has declined, so I came to this town. I'm really grateful that the captain hired me right away. The captain, Joshua, seemed genuinely pleased to be called that. He appeared to be grinning. Once the waiting period was over, it was time for the hard work. We pulled up the dropped nets and retrieved the fish caught within. The salmon we caught were small but incredibly strong, so I held their tails steady to make it easier for Joshua to handle them. There was a lot of blood to drain. Gray widened her eyes but didn't seem scared or disgusted. Following Joshua's demonstration, Gray tried handling the salmon herself and laughed as he did. I've seen my grandfather do this countless times, but doing it myself is a whole different story. Gray was genuinely positive and diligent. Joshua gave her a big thumbs up. Impressive. Once you get the hang of it, you'll handle the physical work just fine. Plus, you're good on the boat. That's a big advantage. Dave, on his first day, was so seasick he couldn't even stand. On the way back from the fishing grounds, Joshua was in high spirits, but I felt conflicted after hearing about my embarrassing debut 15 years ago. Still, Dave's a great fisherman now, Gray said softly, trying to comfort me. After docking, we delivered the freshly caught fish to a local market and a contracted restaurant. While loading buckets onto the cart at the market, Nicola arrived, holding the twins' hands. "Mom, Captain, Uncle, welcome back." The twins greeted us warmly. Both Joshua, who was called Captain, and Nicola, holding the twins' hands, were smiling in a way I'd never seen before. "Ma'am, thank you for even picking them up from daycare," I said to Nicola. Hearing her addressed as ma'am, Nicola burst into laughter. I didn't say anything aloud, but inside, I found it amusing to Captain and ma'am. Nicola seemed a bit uneasy with the title, whispering to Gray, "Gray, just call me Nicola, please." And so, Gray's first day of fishing ended with a lively welcome. That day, I realized how far I still had to go to match Joshua. I thought I was competent, but I lacked composure. Joshua, on the other hand, had so much room for everything. That day, as we worked on the boat as usual, Joshua kept an eye on Gray, giving timely advice and stepping in when necessary. Meanwhile, I was barely managing to focus on my own tasks. I began to wonder if Joshua had brought Gray along for my sake. Compared to Joshua, I still have so much to learn. I muttered this, and Joshua laughed, saying it was only natural. "I've been doing this for over 40 years, more than twice as long as you. If you caught up to me easily, I'd have no standing left." From that day on, Gray joined us on every fishing trip, as she promised on his first day. She learned quickly. Soon, it became normal for the three of us to fish together, with Nicola and the twins greeting us at the dock. I met Gray in early summer, and by the time fall deepened, Nicola suggested they move in with us. We have plenty of space, and it'd save the time of commuting from their apartment. Nicola hesitated, looking apologetic. Compared to going out fishing, commuting to an apartment seems like a piece of cake. She continued with some difficulty. And, well, Daphne and Inez said they'd love to live together too. It seemed that was the real reason. Taking the twins by the hand after picking them up from daycare, Nicola walked to the harbor with the full demeanor of a doting grandmother. "Look, Nicola, I drew a picture of you. Inez made a seashell brooch for you, Nicola." The twins, clearly in love with Nicola, showered her with their adoration. Nicola, for her part, couldn't stop talking about Daphne, Inez, and the twins during dinner. Then she sighed as she turned to me. "Since Dave doesn't have any kids, I'd really love for Gray's family to come live with us." Neither Joshua or I had any objections to Gray's family moving in. In fact, the idea of living with them like a big family sounded wonderful. It would ease Gray's time and workload. However, moving into someone else's home might bring its own kind of pressure. I didn't say anything, thinking about all of this, but Nicola, unable to hold back, brought it up with Gray herself. "Of course, only if you're comfortable with it, but I'd be so happy to live with the twins." Nicola was very forward about pushing the idea of living together, and I was worried it might seem like pressure, but Gray nodded. "Then we'd be happy to take you up on your kind offer." Gray's smile assured me it wasn't forced, and I felt relieved. "If you can move in before the weather gets too cold, that'd be great." Nicola wasted no time setting the move-in date. When Gray's family moved in, our household became a bustling group of 6. Dave doesn't do anything or talk at home, so it's boring. And it's so lively with Daphne and Inez at the table. Joshua and Nicola both expressed similar joy. To be honest, I felt the same. The house was filled with the twins' energetic voices, blending with Gray's calm and kind tones. Sometimes there were moments of scolding, but compared to Nicola's sharp reprimands, they were quite gentle. Having the 3 of them here has really brightened up the house. Nicola said, helping the twins with their meals, one on each side. Tonight, we're sleeping with Nicola. Nicola was in such high spirits that even when Joshua went out drinking, she didn't make a fuss. This made Joshua much more agreeable too. As long as the weather allowed, we went fishing nearly every day, but the co-op had designated rest days. This was one of those days. The twins were at daycare as usual, and their parents were visiting old family friends, so lunch was just Gray and I. After over 6 months of fishing together, we see each other daily. Now that Gray was living here, it was almost like we were family. Yet I couldn't help feeling nervous inside. When it's just 2 portions, it throws off the balance. I'd made too many fries, but Gray commented to smooth things over. And the hamburgers Gray made were also more than enough for 2. 2 portions really do throw things off. In front of a heaping plate of hamburger steak and French fries, we laughed for a while before starting to eat. I ended up blurting out something I had been curious about for a long time. Did you divorce Daphne and Inez's father? As soon as I said it, I realized I had made a mistake, but it was too late. Surprisingly, Gray started speaking rather easily. Yes, I wasn't a very good judge of character. I thought he was a stable man, but he was actually in debt. And it wasn't just any debt, it was gambling debt. Gray said that as soon as she found out about his debts, her ex-husband's demeanor completely changed. I was fooled by his pretense of being a responsible person. He was completely hooked on gambling, careless with both time and money. At first, I tried to help him pay off his debts, but Gray sighed. Before I knew it, he stopped going to work, spending all his time at casinos and horse tracks. There was no way I could stay married to someone like that. I had to leave because I'm going to live happily with Daphne and Inez. Her voice and face were filled with resolve. That's admirable. I meant it. There's something inspiring about someone declaring that they'll create happiness for themselves and their kids. Yes, Nicola has to be admirable. The divorce cut me off from my ex-husband's debts, but there was no way I was going to get any compensation from him in court. Penniless, Gray thought of her beloved grandfather and decided to start a new life in this town by the harbor. Dave doesn't gamble, so I feel safe with him. What? Oh, no, well, generally speaking, gambling isn't good for anyone, right? Oh, yay, that's true. Sometimes, when it's just Gray and me talking, there's an awkward vibe between us. During those moments, I bring up the sea and fishing, about the boat's equipment, fishing spots, currents, or the fish themselves. It's work-related stuff, but Gray always listens intently and asks questions with genuine enthusiasm, so I end up taking it seriously, too. It's made me realize that fishing is more enjoyable and fulfilling than ever before. Gray steadily acquired knowledge and skills. She could read changes in the currents and interpret the fish finder just as well as I could, and her handling skills might even be better than mine. In fact, sushi restaurants would specifically request that Gray handle their fish, and working with her, she always seemed to enjoy herself, which was great. At first, I trusted her as a colleague who shared my love for the sea and fishing. Living together, I came to respect her as a family member and a person. She was someone I felt at ease with, a truly special person. I was undeniably drawn to her, but I didn't want to risk ruining what we had. I couldn't bring myself to confess my feelings. Fishing with her and being at home with her and the twins brought me a sense of peace. Gray had also settled into life at the harbor. Her hard-working nature and cheerful personality made her well-liked by everyone. Despite her petite frame, she handled the physical demands of fishing, earning both concern and admiration. Gray and her children were accepted as part of the harbor community and family. I found myself loving this harbor and the fishing life I'd grown up with even more, cherishing the daily happiness it brought. I thought this way of life would continue forever. But one day, Gray was offered a job at the harbor restaurant. Its hours were from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., and even factoring in prep and cleanup, she'd still have time to drop off and pick up her kids from daycare. The restaurant had a shop on the first floor and a living space on the second floor, meaning Gray and her kids could live there. The restaurant owner had approached Joshua and Nicola, longtime acquaintances, about the opportunity before talking to Gray. Nicola wanted to stay close to the twins. Joshua, too, didn't want to let go of Gray deep down, but he relayed the diner proposal to her because it was a good offer. I had no right to stop her. Gray was surprised when she heard about the offer, but said after a night of thinking that she would take it. I can't just keep relying on Captain, Nicola, and Dave forever, Gray said cheerfully. After that, everything moved quickly, and the move was finished in half a day. Going fishing with Gray was going to be the last time. Joshua remained irritable, but he was as lively as ever when talking to Gray. Dave, make sure you learn how Gray handles things, Joshua joked, half serious. Gray laughed softly. Dave is much better than me. He's strong, and it's satisfying to watch him work. I'll miss seeing it, but from now on, I'll make sure to cook your fish deliciously at the restaurant. Was Gray feeling sad too? The house without Gray and the twins felt like a lifeless void. It was too quiet, too empty, and none of us, Joshua, Nicola, or I, spoke much. Nicola kept sighing, and Joshua watched her with concern, barely touching his evening drink. And I got injured while being absent-minded on the boat. It was just a small cut on my finger, but Joshua scolded me harshly. Being distracted on the boat was dangerous. I knew that all too well. After finishing up the cleanup and shipping tasks in the evening, I dreaded returning to the silent house. But as I got closer, I heard the laughter of the twins and Nicola. Both Joshua and I hurried to the living room. Nicola was sitting with Daphne and Inez on either side, with a crayon drawing laid out in front of them. "Oh, you're back. Welcome home." Today, Inez and Daphne came to show me their drawings. "Look, here's you and Dave too." Nicola pointed at the drawing, beaming with joy and pride. The large artwork on the paper showed a backdrop of the sea and what seemed to be a boat. In the foreground, 6 people stood hand in hand: Joshua, Nicola, Mom, Dave, Daphne, and Inez. The twins said in unison, pointing to each figure. "Mom said we're one big family, and we had to show everyone, so we came." Mom said she loves Joshua's boat, and she loves Joshua, Nicola, and Dave. She said we're good at drawing too. "Yay, yeah. This is really great work," Joshua said, patting the twins on their heads. Mom said that once she gets even better at cooking, she wants to open a restaurant with the fish Joshua and Dave catch. The twins took turns explaining. Nicola wiped her tears, smiling warmly, while Joshua nodded at their words with a gentle expression. As for me, I found myself repeating the twins' words in my head. That she liked us, wanted to make a restaurant featuring our fish. For some reason, I felt Joshua glaring at me just then. Nicola suddenly glanced at the clock and exclaimed, "Oh, it's already so late. How about we have dinner at home with Mom tonight? Dave, can you go get Gray?" Sure. Should we go pick up Mom together?" I said this while reaching out my hands to the twins. Daphne and Inez took my hands tightly. "Hey, Dave. Go by yourself. Now, Daphne and Inez, can you help out a bit here?" The twins exchanged glances, nodded, and gave my hands a firm squeeze. Dave, see you soon, they said, releasing my hands. As I walked toward the restaurant, I kept remembering the feeling of their tiny hands. At the restaurant, Gray was just finishing tidying up. Dave, good evening. I was just about to go get the girls. Oh, are you alone? Gray, I called out loudly. Since you moved away, the house feels so empty. Joshua and Nicola adore you. And I love you, Daphne, and Inez too. Please, come back home to us. As soon as I said it, I realized my eyes were shut tightly. Silence followed. When I cautiously opened my eyes, Gray was staring at me, wide-eyed. She met my gaze, and then smiled softly. At that moment, tears started to stream down her face. Why are you crying? I was at a loss, and reached out to comfort her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Her shoulder felt so delicate, as if it could break at any moment, so I instinctively used my other hand to gently support her. Joshua and Nicola have been so kind, and I didn't want to impose or cause any trouble. Also, I thought I shouldn't fall more in love with you. What? I hadn't realized. She had feelings for me. I'm sorry, I've been such a coward. I should have said something sooner, but I was happy just living with you all. I didn't think you felt the same, and I didn't want to make things uncomfortable for you. Gray smiled and nodded, but seeing her tears that wouldn't stop, I started to panic. Seconds, maybe minutes passed. From a distance, the twins' voices echoed. Mom, are you done cleaning up? Grandpa said he might be lost. Joshua, Daphne, and Inez are here to pick you up. Finally snapping out of my panic, I remembered the one thing I needed to say. Will you marry me? Yes. Gray was no longer crying. Her answer was bright and clear. Wow, for a spineless guy like you, that was impressive. Joshua's voice ran out as the twins came running into the restaurant. Mom, are you done cleaning? Nicola said we should all have dinner together. Dave, you're late. Gray, Daphne, and Inez were all laughing. All right, let's hurry home. Nicola's cooking dinner for us. With Gray's cheerful rally, we all headed back home. Not long after, Gray and the twins moved back in with us. Joshua and Nicola seemed unbelievably happy, and honestly, so was I. The dinner table was lively, filled with conversations, laughter echoing through the house, and even the lights felt brighter. I'm going to take a bath with Nicola. All right, all right. Seeing Nicola's cheerful expression, Joshua decided to go out for a drink for the first time in a while. Gray has been spending time at the restaurant. The fish dishes she learned started appearing on our dining table. A year after moving back in together, we got married. Gray's cooking became so popular that the restaurant grew too busy, leading them to hire more staff, which finally allowed us to tie the knot. During the peak fishing seasons, Gray also joins the fishing trips. The fish Gray handles always receive rave reviews. About 6 months later, we were blessed with a new life. Even before the doctor's confirmation, the twins seemed to sense something and often talked to their mother's belly. Gray stopped going out to fish after getting pregnant, but she continues helping at the restaurant little by little. Let's take it slow for now. But remember, someday we're going to open a restaurant serving dishes made from the fish Dave catches. Gray insists she can't slack off until that dream comes true. Since my dream has already been fulfilled, her dream has become mine too. I asked the twins about their dreams. They said they wanted a little brother or sister, so we could all eat together happily, and they drew a picture of it. When I asked about their dreams as grown-ups, they said it was to enjoy delicious meals with our close-knit family. When they drew their future dreams, it turned out to be exactly like our everyday family dinners.